Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. We have a lot to cover as always. What more do we need to know about the deported Maryland man championed by Democrats other than he was pulled over driving a car belonging to a human smuggler? This Garcia guy, who is in an El Salvador prison, it appears the more we know about him, the more the right choice was made. We have the latest details on that for you. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has plans to boycott El Salvador for aiding the Trump administration over Kilmar Abrego Garcia's detention. The governor is going to pull out any investments that could potentially benefit El Salvador. Elon Musk and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had a heated argument in the halls of the White House, according to the New York Post. We have those details. And still no peace deal in Ukraine, as talks end without Ukraine agreeing to a war peace deal. As Zelensky admits, emotions have run high, he said, over the U.S. bid to recognize Crimea as Russia.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
The so-called deported Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whom Democrats have been demanding that the Trump administration return to the U.S., was previously pulled over by a highway patrol officer while driving a car belonging to a confessed human smuggler. And this is according to multiple sources in the Department of Homeland Services and confirmed by Fox News and other media outlets. The sources confirmed that documents reported by Justin News that revealed Abrego Garcia was pulled over driving an SUV belonging to Jose Ramon Hernandez Reyes, another illegal alien who in 2020 confessed to human smuggling across the U.S.-Mexico border. As previously reported by a number of media outlets, Abrego Garcia, he's 29 years old, an illegal alien, whom the Trump administration recently deported back to El Salvador. He is in an El Salvador prison as we speak. The story is that he is pulled over on December the 1st, 2022, by a Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper. Stopped him as he was observed speeding and unable to stay in his lane. The trooper noticed 8 individuals in the car with Abrego Garcia, who he said began driving 3 days prior from Houston to Texas to Temple Hills, Maryland, via St. Louis, Missouri, to perform construction work, according to Garcia at the time. The report on the stop states that the trooper suspected that it was human trafficking as there was no luggage in the vehicle. Additionally, the individuals in the car reportedly gave the same address as Abrego Garcia's home address. Now, if you're going to have a carload of humans that you're smuggling in for some nefarious reason, you probably need to coach them a little better in case you are pulled over. Because that's a red flag when they all give Garcia's home address. You got to know something's wrong, right? When speaking with the trooper, Abrego Garcia allegedly pretended to speak less English than he was capable of and attempted to put encountering officer off track by responding to questions with questions. And we heard a piece of this story before. We're learning more as the documents have been released. After the incident, the officer decided not to give Abrego Garcia a citation for driving for the driving infractions, but rather gave him a warning for driving with an expired license. New documents further reveal that Abrego Garcia was driving a black 2001 Chevrolet Suburban that he said belonged to his, quote, boss. Well, who's the boss? The Suburban was identified by DHS as belonging to Hernandez Reyes, who pleaded guilty to human smuggling after being caught in Mississippi in a car with passengers from Mexico, El Salvador, and Honduras. And this is typical. I mean, these people, they have a network. They come over here and they break our laws coming in to begin with, illegally. But they come over here and they have no respect for the rule of law. According to another document also confirmed by DHS sources, the Homeland Security Investigations Baltimore field office further flagged the vehicle being driven by Garcia as belonging to a target they suspected of human trafficking or smuggling. The office said that the vehicle is used by HSI Baltimore target in human smuggling trafficking operation. Vehicle makes trips to southern border to pick up non-citizens. It's like a courier service. They leave the Baltimore, Maryland area. They drive south to the border. They pick up a load and they take them back. And then they disperse them wherever. According to police and court records that were shared to the media, Mr. Garcia was arrested in Hyattsville, Maryland in October 2019. We knew that. At which point he was identified by the Prince George's County's police gang unit as a member of the MS-13 gang. We knew that too, although the Democrats want to say there's no proof. A federal immigration court in Baltimore further determined Abrego Garcia was not eligible for release because he failed to meet his burden of demonstrating that his release from custody would not pose a danger to others, as the evidence shows that he is a verified member of MS-13. And it just keeps going on. And the Democrats want to defend him. The Democrats are standing on their head because, first off, the Trump administration won't take the initiative, I guess, to go break him out of the El Salvador prison. But number two, El Salvador officials will not agree to release him. The court held that the fact that a past proven and reliable source of information verified the respondent's gang membership, rank, and a gang name is sufficient to support that the respondent, Garcia, is a gang member. It's just that simple. And that Abrego had failed to present evidence to rebut that assertion. Basically, there's a lot of evidence showing that you are a gang member and you're not supplying any to prove otherwise. That's the situation. Now, court records involving Mr. Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez, have further shown that he's a violent, repeat wife beater. He's a bad dude. He has no respect for others' lives, not even his own wife. Fox News obtained the written domestic violence allegations filed in court against Garcia. In the filing, written in Ms. Vasquez's own handwriting, she alleges Garcia repeatedly beat her, writing, "At this point, I'm afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos, videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises that he has left me." Vasquez alleged that Abrego Garcia punched and scratched her on her eye, leaving her bleeding. He also allegedly threw her laptop on the floor. She wrote that on another day, Abrego Garcia got angry again, started yelling, and ripped her shirt and shorts off before grabbing her arm and leaving marks. Now, why did Vasquez stay with him? Of course, that's probably an easy question when you have a lot of resources, and she didn't. In November 2020, she said, "He hit me with his work boot." In August 2020, he hit me in the eye, leaving a purple eye. Meanwhile, while we're talking about El Salvador, Illinois Governor Pritzker has ordered the state to review any investments in business with El Salvador, a move that could lead to a boycott over this nation's assistance with the Trump administration in the deportation, or lack thereof, of Mr. Garcia. In a statement, the Democrat Illinois governor said that the move was in response to the administration's defiance of court orders and the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this suspected MS-13 gang member with connections to human trafficking. In his statement, he said, the United States Constitution guarantees due process. We're witnessing Donald Trump erode our fundamental constitutional rights in real time, and we must fight to restore balance of power. He said the state of Illinois will stand up for the rule of law and do everything in our power to stop the Trump administration from ripping apart our most basic rights. Wonder how the state of Illinois and the governor of Illinois, how they feel about our country being invaded. Any mention of that? You think they're okay with our country being invaded by a bunch of thugs that are members of this MS-13 gang, who are drug dealers, who are human traffickers? I guess that we're supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt, huh? Give them that due process that everybody is so happy about these days. Due process. Have you ever heard people arguing for due process as much as you have the Democrats over this guy? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com.
Are you ready for this? I dropped over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan, and I never took Ozempic or any of those other weight loss shots. Joey Hudson here. Before you take a drug, here's something you should know. Your body already makes GLP-1. That's the appetite-fighting hormone that these popular drugs copy. But the PhD weight loss program helps your body make it on its own. No side effects, no long-term risk, no major muscle loss, and no rebound weight gain when you stop. Just natural, lasting results. Before Big Pharma was dancing around in commercials, Dr. Ashley Lucas was doing the real work, helping people lose weight naturally and keeping it off, all without hunger or cravings. At PhD Weight Loss, you'll learn what to eat, when to eat, and how to flip your fat-burning switch without a shot. Don't trade your health for a quick fix. You can do this without Big Pharma. You can do this without drugs. Right now, the first 11 callers get 2 weeks free added to their program, 15% off when you fully commit to the program, a free supplemental bundle, and the PhD Get Results Guarantee. Call now, 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or online at myphdweightloss.com.
Democrat Illinois Senator Dick Durbin has announced his retirement after 44 years in Congress, stating there comes a point where you have to face reality that this is the time to leave. Durbin, the longest-serving Senate whip in American history, was widely expected to not seek a sixth term in the Senate. His decision to retire is seen as passing the torch to the next generation of leaders, with him acknowledging that there are good people on the bench ready to serve. His retirement is likely to trigger a contested Democrat primary to succeed him in the U.S. Senate, his fourth Senate Democrat to announce their retirement in 2025. They're going to have to, of course, that's a pretty safe seat for a Democrat. 44 years. That's what's wrong with our federal government, isn't it? That someone would be in the United States Senate for 44 years. That screams term limits, right? On the text line, Tony says, why is it when George Bush, William Clinton, and Barack insane Obama, and that's not a typo, is it, Tony, deported the millions of illegals, nobody screamed due process like they are with Trump? Good point, Tony. Christy says the reason the liberals are trying to block the deportations is they need to keep their voting pool here. You caught on to them quickly there, didn't you, Christy? Department of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth attracting some attention after he ordered modifications to a room next to the Pentagon press briefing room to create a makeup studio for television appearances. The project cost several $1,000s, raising concerns about cost-cutting measures in the administration. The green room renovation was suggested by his assistant, Tammy Radaboff, the deputy assistant to the Secretary for Strategic Engagement, and happens to be a former Fox News producer and colleague. of Mr. Hegseth. Hegseth, of course, a former Fox News co-host himself, emphasized that improvements in the armed forces' warfighting abilities and military readiness were his top priority. Of course, the Democrats are saying, well, why do you need a makeup room? Why are you spending money on a makeup room if improving the armed forces' warfighting abilities is your top priority? We're told that Hegseth used the press room for TV appearances, including one where he addressed sharing sensitive military details in a Signal group chat. The tension between Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE's lead Elon Musk, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent came to a head last week when the two had a heated argument in the halls of the White House. Two sources familiar with this argument talked to the New York Post about it. The conversation was about the IRS, we're told. It got so tense, Axios first reported, the two men got into each other's faces in earshot of President Trump. One source said Elon was shouting and rambling and Scott just wasn't putting up with it. A second source close to the White House said that the fight was fundamentally about the different visions the two men have for reform, with Musk taking a much more aggressive approach. Well, of course he is. The source told the Post, Bessent has two mandates, reform and stabilize. Elon has one mandate, break things in the process of reform. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was also present for the conversation, according to the report, and seemed to take Musk's side in this particular case. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about it. She said, quote, it's no secret President Trump has put together a team of people who are incredibly passionate about the issues impacting our country. She said disagreements are a normal part of any healthy policy process, and ultimately everyone knows they serve at the pleasure of President Donald Trump. This isn't the first time that Musk has had a public dispute with top-level Trump administration members. Look, Elon Musk is not going to back down to anybody. If he has an idea, if he has an opinion about something, I get the feeling you're going to know about it. He was publicly vying on X for Lutnick to be Treasury Secretary, arguing that he will actually enact change. But, of course, we know that President Trump went for Mr. Bessent, who was from Charleston, South Carolina. According to Musk, he wrote this in November, Bessent is a business-as-usual choice, whereas Howard Lutnick will actually enact change. Business as usual is driving America bankrupt, so we need change. Musk then got into a X feud with senior counsel for trade and manufacturing, Peter Navarro, calling him a moron. These are adults working in the most powerful residence in the world, the White House, and they're calling each other morons. What's wrong with that? In his X post, in response to Navarro calling Tesla a car assembler, I guess that kind of pushed one of his buttons, because I'm sure he views Tesla as a car manufacturer. But Navarro called him an assembler. He said Navarro is truly a moron. What he says here is demonstrably false. Tesla has the most American-made cars. Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. So calls him a moron, and then he calls him dumber than a sack of bricks. Musk will pull back his presence at the end of May as his appointment as a special government employee comes to a close. He reportedly told Tesla shareholders on Tuesday that his duties were ending. I think he's trying to settle the nerves of Tesla investors, because Tesla has taken a beating. The only person who's lost more money serving in our government than Donald Trump is Elon Musk. He said that he will still be open to contributing a day or two a week to Doge-related matters. But basically, he's got to get back to work because his company, because of the left, because his company is under attack, is falling apart in places. And Musk look, I don't care how rich you are, you can't afford to lose some of the money that he apparently has lost with the stock market downturn. Now, I'm sure he probably has a plan to make it back up. Of course, representatives for Musk, Bessent, and Lutnick did not respond to inquiries from the New York Post. Of course they didn't. They're not going to talk to the Post. Why would they? Wow, again, these are adults calling each other morons. Well, folks, what do we have here? A little slice of sanity coming out of one of America's most woke universities. You're not dreaming. This is real life. Cornell University, of all places, just canceled. You heard me right. They canceled a performer for being too hateful. I mean, how often do you hear this? All right, let's go back. Let's do a quick review. Remember the other day when I talked with you about this Kalani, this performer who was going to be paid to come and put on a concert? Let me paint the picture. Let me do a little quick review here. The university was gearing up for their big end-of-the-year celebration, Slope Day, they call it. You know, one of those taxpayer-subsidized beer-soaked student music festivals funded through mandatory student fees. When you enroll as a student there, like all universities, you don't have a choice. You got student fees you got to pay. And they use those student fees to pay for some absurd things on campus. Naturally, the school brought in someone to, quote, unite the campus, right? Wrong. They booked Kalani, a so-called R&B star who decided to turn her music videos and Instagram feed into a Hamas press release, a Hamas cheerleader. This woman openly called for intifada. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, that's not just a protest. It's an uprising, violent, deadly, aimed directly at the state of Israel and by extension the Jewish people. She hates Jews. She would like to see Jews dead. And they were going to pay her to come perform at this university. Well, we had a lot of protests. We had people who were calling on the university, the Trump administration, for one, leading the charge, saying, hey, you have these type of people on your campus, you're not going to get your federal funds. We had supporters saying, you let this lady come on campus and perform, I'm not donating anymore. Now, if you don't believe that she's really just bad, I don't want you to take my word for it. This is from her own social media. This is a direct quote. F Israel from the top of my lungs, she said. Oh, and let's not forget, dismantle Israel, eradicate Zionism. She's a charming young lady, isn't she? And yet, some genius over at the Cornell Student Board thought that this was just the kind of voice that they needed to bring students together. What idiots. I mean, who ever thought that there was anything right about this? What kind of fantasy world are these kids living in? I guess the kind where hate speech is empowerment, as long as it's aimed at the right people, and it's the right kind of hate speech. Well, I want you to imagine the reverse. Imagine for 1 second if an artist had said, dismantle Palestine or eradicate anti-Zionism. That artist wouldn't have just been disinvited. They'd have been deplatformed. They would have been banned, probably investigated by the Justice Department, the Joe Biden Justice Department. But in this case, Kalani gets a headlining spot and a student funding paycheck, or she did, except the students actually fought back. Gives me a little more hope for Cornell University that they actually had students on campus who recognized that this was just wrong. Pro-Israel, pro-American, Jewish students on campus said, we've had enough. They launched a petition. They made their voices heard. And for once, the university president actually listened. Imagine that. I guess it proves that university presidents of these woke universities can hear the voices of the students. Michael Kotlikoff is Cornell's president. He came out earlier yesterday afternoon and said, nope, we're pulling the plug. Kalani is out, disinvited, and the crowd just went wild. You could hear the applause and the screaming if you watch the video. Now, let me tell you why this matters. This wasn't just a singer. This wasn't some R&B talent as it was being proposed. This was a message. This was about whether a university, an American university at that, would tolerate a figure who openly calls for violence against one of our strongest allies, Israel, while claiming to represent all students. Well, spoiler alert here, she doesn't. Kalani does not represent all students, not in the least. She hates Jews. So if you were a Jewish student at Cornell, Kalani wouldn't pull over and help you if you were in danger on the side of the road. She hates Jews. And this is about how we deal with this creeping anti-Semitism that's taken over some of our college campuses. We've seen more and more of it. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed how it seems to just be okay on some of these Ivy League campuses to have anti-Semitic demonstrations? It's not always burning swastikas or hateful graffiti. Sometimes it's just a little more subtle. It's dressing up terrorism as, quote, resistance, freedom of speech. It's justifying Hamas in the name of justice. And worst of all, it's administrators who let it happen under the banner of free speech. These so-called college presidents, the deans of students, these academic leaders, they sit back and they let this happen. Until, of course, conservatives speak up. And then suddenly, there's a code of conduct violation. But this time, surprisingly, and I do have to admit I'm surprised, the system seemed to have worked for once. Cornell's president said in a statement, Slope Day is about uniting our community, not dividing it. I believe it is the right thing to do and the decision I must make to ensure community and safety. Well, good for you, sir. Good for you for recognizing that this would have been divisive. And there's a lot of other things those student activity fees could be used to pay for that could truly benefit all students. There has to be a happy medium there. And yes, sir, you're right. It is the right thing to do. This isn't censorship, folks. It's common sense. It's saying if you promote violence, if you spew hate, you don't get a headline. You don't get to headline the party. Period. End of story. You don't get paid thousands of dollars to perform on our campus and potentially jeopardize our federal funding. Now, here's the best part. The students' petition page, it got updated. And I quote, "Thanks to your help, the school has announced that Kalani will not be performing at Slope Day. We truly appreciate your support. We would not have succeeded without you." And you know what else? This is just a great demonstration of democracy on a campus, isn't it? Of how, yes, your voice can be heard. And yes, it's worth making those phone calls, sending those emails, texting those texts, walking around campus with homemade signs, if you will. Because this was a case that this was just going to be wrong at all levels. And the administration heard these students. So here's the translation. Grassroots activism still works. Grassroots activism still works. When you speak up loud and clear and relentlessly, change can happen. Even in the bluest of blue campuses. And boy, you don't get any bluer than Cornell. So the lesson learned here, of course, is don't give up. When they tell you that, hey, your voice is inconsequential, keep talking. Keep calling your friends. It doesn't happen by staying silent. It doesn't happen by hoping someone else is going to do it. It happens when each one of us say, enough is enough. We're not going along with this nonsense anymore. So stand up, be bold. Don't let your school, your community, your business, our country get hijacked by people who think hating America's allies make them revolutionary, that it's okay. Cornell, you did the right thing. And just a few days ago, I would have never thought that you would do that. Maybe it's because you thought you might lose your federal funding. That's okay. That's all right. At least you did it. At least you did the right thing for all of your students. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. We wrap up another show today. President Trump was pretty optimistic yesterday that he felt like the world was close to coming to an agreement and that there might be peace between Ukraine and Russia. But it appears that the London discussions between the U.S., the United Kingdom, Ukraine, France, Germany ended without an agreement on the terms of a potential peace deal. But with promises to keep talking, as Ukraine's President Zelensky again insisted ceding Crimea to Russia was a non-starter. The suggestion that talks will keep going comes after the Trump administration threatened to abandon U.S. efforts to facilitate negotiations between these two countries, the latter of which, Russia, has refused to agree to the president's proposed ceasefire for more than a month now. The White House affirmed that U.S. involvement in the talks would not end, despite earlier threats. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said not by the end of the day today, but the president has maintained that his frustration is growing and he needs to see this thing come to an end. While expressing openness for further talks, Ukrainian President Zelensky made clear that Kyiv will not consider any proposals that involve the recognition of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula as sovereign Russian land, and noted that emotions have run high today over the U.S. suggestion to do so. Look, if they want to keep killing each other, I guess that's their prerogative. I hope they understand, and I hope the Trump administration made it clear that we're not going to keep sending billions of dollars for them to do so. It's time for this to be over, right? You agree? Here's what Russia and Ukraine each get in Trump's final deal here. Russia would get formal U.S. recognition of Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula as Russian territory. And this is the big sticking point with Ukraine. It's a major departure from Washington's longstanding Wells Doctrine, which refuses to acknowledge annexed territory as belonging to the seizing power. The other thing is they'd get de facto recognition of Russia's occupation of 4 regions in eastern Ukraine, meaning that the U.S. would acknowledge Moscow controls these 4 regions. A pledge that the U.S. would not support Ukraine becoming a member of NATO and lifting sanctions to boost Russia's economy, which has struggled throughout the war on Ukraine. Now, Ukraine would get assistance from European military forces as a, quote, robust security guarantee following a ceasefire. The U.S. would not be involved in this measure. It would be the Europeans. Russia would return a small portion of Ukraine's area currently occupied by Moscow. Navigation rights in the Dnieper River, which runs along the front lines, and assistance in post-war rebuilding, though it's unclear from where that funding would come. But as it stands right now, I guess they're going to continue fighting. In a newly released Fox News poll, as we're approaching the 100th day of Donald Trump's second term, the survey finds that voters are pleased with the job that President Trump is doing on border security, but displeased on most other issues, including inflation. Things aren't happening fast enough, even though they seem to be going at a breakneck speed. So here's what this poll says. President Trump receives his best marks on border security, as 55% approves of what he's doing at the southern border, and our northern border too, for that matter. That's the only issue where President Trump's ratings are in positive territory. On immigration, a record high of 47% approve of Trump, 48% disapprove. With a new low of 38% approval on the economy, which means 56% disapprove. His worst ratings are on inflation, as people are seeing him do so many things so quickly. Their expectation is that he will be able to get inflation under control this quickly. It ain't going to happen. But people are unhappy. 33% approve, 59% disapprove. Followed by tariffs. Majority, 58%, disapprove of the tariffs. Foreign policy, surprising to me. 40% approve, 54% disapprove. Taxes, big time. 53% of people disapprove of Trump's stance on taxes. And guns, kind of close. 41% approve, 44% disapprove. Overall approval of President Trump's job performance comes in at 44%. That's down 5 points from the 49% he received last month in March. That's lower than the approval, and it hurts me to say this, of Joe Biden in the same time period at 54%. Barack Obama had 62% at this point. George W. Bush had 63%. At the 100-day mark in their presidencies, all of these recent presidents had a higher rating. It's just hard to believe. It's also lower by 1 point compared to Trump's 45% approval at this point 8 years ago. Some 59% of voters are unhappy with how things are going in the country. And a lot of it has to do with inflation and the economy and what they perceive to be happening with the tariffs. Now, that's an improvement since the end of former President Biden's term. 68% were dissatisfied. But worse than 4 years ago at the beginning of his term, 53% dissatisfied. It's also worse than the 100-day mark of Trump's first term, which you saw 53% dissatisfied. Since his inauguration on January 20th, satisfaction among Democrats has turned to dissatisfaction and vice versa among Republicans. Dissatisfaction remains steady among independents. Well, you would expect Democrats to be dissatisfied. That's no big surprise. That's not a revelation there. But here's the big thing. Voters remain gloomy about the economy, as 71% rate economic conditions negatively and 55% say it's getting worse for their family. And that is just crucial. That is what will lose us the midterm elections if it remains like this. Both of those numbers are slightly improved compared to where they were in December, the final days of the Biden administration. But still, only 28% say it feels like things are getting better, and by a 22-point margin more than Trump's policies are hurting rather than helping the economy. The tariffs are just not popular. Trump's underwater by a narrow 11-point margin when voters are asked what they expect from his policies in the long run. They're also less optimistic about the future than they were at the beginning of Trump's first term. Based on the first 100 days, 38% overall and 75% of Republicans say they feel encouraged about the next 4 years. In 2017, those numbers were 45% and 84%, respectively. But when the economy turns around, folks, and it will, when we get through this rough patch and things settle down over the tariffs and the markets kind of level out and we earn those gains back in our 401ks and the price of eggs has come down, fuel has remained low, houses are becoming more affordable, interest rates are dropping. As these things happen, and they will, these poll numbers are going to change drastically. And you just can't expect the man to be able to handle all of these things in 100 days. So let's pray for President Trump, and let's have patience and let him do his thing.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.